Welcome back to Broken Electronics. I'm Lee, and yes, of course, I have a computer project today. I have a 2006 Mac Pro 1,1, the original Mac Pro. And it is, as it sits, a very competent machine, even in today's world. It's restricted to El Capitan, and you got to hack with it some to get it to be on El Capitan. But El Capitan is still a very functional, workable operating system in today's world. There's not a real problem with it at all. So, I can do email, I can do web browsing to my heart's content, I can I get messages, iMessages works fine. I can send messages. All of that is good. Obviously, basic productivity, word processing, spreadsheets, etc. work absolutely fine. But clearly, it isn't the powerhouse that it was 14 years ago. I'd kind of like to see what we can get it to do. As it sits, it has two 2.66 gigahertz dual core processors for a total of 8 cores. So what I'm going to do today is try to upgrade those processors to two 3 gigahertz quad cores, making a total of 8 cores. And that should be pretty dramatic. What did they send here? Actually sent an anti-static wristband. That's a nice thing. Thermal paste, adding to my already rather extensive thermal paste collection. An Intel Xeon sticker. Yeah, right, like I'm going to put a sticker on my computers. Some person off in the future will just have to take it off. A chem pad, which, I usually will clean off the heat sinks with rubbing alcohol and a lint-free gauze pad. But these work very, very well. Heck, they've sent it. And the processors themselves. Intel Xeon 3 GHz X5365 for the Mac Pro 2006 or 2007. Now, the upgrade of the processors in essence is the same process as with the 5,1 Mac Pro, which is sitting in front of me. I have upgraded it. In fact, I did videos concerning those upgrades. What the 1,1, 2,1, and in fact the 3,1, which is basically the same process, what they lack is that beautiful little CPU tray that you just slide out, take the heat sinks off, change the RAM if you want, change the CPUs, put the heat sinks back on, slide it back in. Great idea, wonderful design. But they didn't come up with that till 2010. Back in 2006, 2007, 2008, actually they came up with it in 2009 for the 4,1s. In 2006 through 2008, to upgrade the processors, which is very doable, you got to take the whole darn thing apart. Pretty much everything has to come out of it. It's doable. I am going to do it. But yeah, it's a process. Now, once that's done, there's a second part to this, which I'm expecting to make into a separate video. Uh, the firmware for the 1,1 doesn't really know how to deal with those processors. These, what I've got here, are the maximum processors for the 2,1. However, the two machines are basically the same machine. So, once this processor upgrade is done, I will be able to flash the firmware on 1,1, making it in essence a 2,1. And there's one other step. The System Management Controller, SMC. It doesn't recognize those processors either, and doesn't really understand how to cool them. So it's a little more involved, but you can also flash the SMC from 1,1 SMC to the 2,1 SMC. And I would like to thank particularly Greg Rutke of Rutke Mods for his excellent tutorials on how to accomplish both those flashes. And Save Apple Dollars, where we have an excellent video on the process of opening the machine and taking everything out. Probably the most concise and clear explanation of that I've seen. Well, this should be an adventure indeed. I hope you're interested, and I hope that you will want to stay tuned. Alright, we're here in the El Capitan desktop on the 2006 Mac Pro 1,1. I've just run the CPU benchmark, so we get 1675 in the single core score and 5263 in the multi-core score. We can see some of our specs in here. 16 gigabytes of RAM, 2 processors, 4 cores, Intel Xeon 5150. Right, and there's the rest of that. Now, I'm going to take a screenshot of this, and then, just for completeness sake, I'll run the GPU test. I'm not expecting it to vary greatly, pre and post upgrade, since the GPU is not being affected, only the processors. But we might as well do it because we're here, so stay tuned. Be back in just a bit. Okay, and we are back with the results of the GPU test. The OpenCL score on this GPU is all you can run, so it's 10,495. As I say, of course, on all these tests, they'll vary a little bit just from time to time running it. But since we're not changing the GPU, this should stay pretty much the same. It's the CPU scores where we're expecting to see a very dramatic difference. Well, okay, on to the actual upgrades then. Stay tuned. Alright, I think we're ready to begin this. Now, I had said that the entire machine needed to be disassembled. So that's not completely, totally true. You can leave the optical drive in place. You can leave the power supply in place, unplugged of course. But we want to remove our drives. Now there's only 2 drives in this machine, but we're going to take all of the sleds out to make that a little easier to get at. Now, Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to get in there and push down the clip. There. You need, of course, to get the graphics card out. There are no other PCIe cards installed in the system, so there it is. Working blind here. Now, yeah, there's a clip in there that holds the graphics card in place, right there, which is remarkably difficult to get at when the graphics card is in there. All right. This is dusty, and I remember. We need to take out our RAM. And now we shall have to turn the machine onto its side. We have the exhaust fan and the RAM cage. They're attached. This is the cover for the CPU heat sinks. And this is the intake fan. Those all need to come out and be unplugged from the logic board. That's going to be easier to do with the machine turned on its side. So please, stay tuned. All right, this entire assembly here is basically held in to place by 5 screws. Here, 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 all in the RAM cage, and then this one screw up here by the intake fan, at which point we should be able to get everything out of there. Alright, now you don't need to watch me unscrewing screws. If you really like watching people unscrew screws, go to it and have fun, but we'll be back. You know, when you look at videos, all these things seem pretty straightforward. Shouldn't be a real problem. These screws here required some force, but they came out. Trying to get at the one here, fortunately, I had a driver and a bit that was just long enough to get down into it, so I actually could get it to turn. And once I was able to get a little bit of torque on it, it came out. Here and here, they won't budge. So that means, once again, liquid wrench to the rescue. So I'm going to turn it back up on its side, apply a drop or two of liquid wrench in there, and in about 20 minutes, half an hour, it ought to work. Stay tuned. Well, nothing is ever easy. The 2 screws here and here holding the RAM cage in will not budge. The 2 back there, however, moved. I was able to move the RAM cage just enough that I could just barely get the CPU shroud off. Once I got the CPU shroud off, I was able to get the fan out. Okay. And found that I could actually unplug, and have already done so, the CPU B. This is A, this is B. From the logic board. Now I should be able to get these heat sinks off, replace the processors, get the heat sinks put back on. I should definitely be able to do that and the thermal sensor is plugged back in, of course, the logic board. Now, I should be able to get the fan to go back in. Can I get that shroud to go back on? All I can say is, man, I think I've already said it. It's never easy. Well, the heat sinks are off. Those are the old CPUs ready to be replaced. This was another bear. It wasn't too bad except for this screw, which is very much blocked by the RAM cage. And there's a heat sink on this side. I can't see the screw. And trying to get the screwdriver to go in there by feel was really, really tough. Now I managed to do it. The big question now is, can I get them back on? Stay tuned. Well, it's back together. As I suspected, the most difficult part of this was getting the CPU shroud back on. And it's kind of back on. I would say that if you ever happen to be doing this yourselves, try really hard to get that fan shroud released, the RAM cage released. It is so much easier. Well, let's put the door back on. Now we've got to stand it up, plug it in, see if it boots, and I really hope that when I sign off in this video saying this has been Broken Electronics, that this is in fact not broken. In order to find out, stay tuned. Well, my friends, I have been at this for about 11 hours. It's 10:30 at night now. Well past beer o'clock, or should I say Newcastle o'clock. I do find that beer and messing around on the inside of computers does not mix. Not that I've ever tried it. Now, beer and messing around with networking, or with installing operating systems, things like that. That we can say, okay. Well, the Mac Pro 1, from 2006 is plugged in. The light just went on. And it chimed. And we have video. Come on. Give me an Apple logo, please. You're not giving me an Apple logo. Well, it chimed. We have video. The CPUs must be working. The graphics card is back in properly. All right, let's power it down. Find the arm button here. All right. Hold down the option key. There's the chime. There's the video. Well, okay. It's showing all of the options. We've got LCAP selected. All right. Lord only knows what that was, but if at first you don't succeed, try again, I guess. This is a spinning hard drive. It's not going to be the fastest computer in the world. But as I've said in the past, I don't care that much about boot times. I care if it boots up and it works. And here we are on the El-Cap desktop. Okay, we'll quit on messengers for the moment. It's all here. Now, what does about this Mac tell us? Okay, it says exactly what I had expected it would say. 2 by 3 gigahertz, unknown. Now, the reason for that, the 2006 1.1 firmware does not really know how to address these processors. These processors are the ones that came with the higher end of the 2007 2.1s. So, in order to fix this problem, I am going to have to update the firmware to the 2007 2.1 firmware, at which point this machine will start to report as a 2.1 Mac Pro. Forgive me, I'm really tired. But it's all working. All right, now the other thing that will need to be done, there is a system management controller firmware update that needs to be done also to bring it to the 2007 specs so that the system will know how to control the fans for these hotter processors. Oh, but by golly, my friends, it actually worked. It was a strenuous endeavor on my part, but we got it to happen. So I'll raise my glass. And be good to other people. Be good to yourselves. Take very good and careful care. I'll come back with the firmware update video tomorrow. I'm too tired to do it tonight. Well, this has been Broken Electronics. We'll see you soon.